started. I'm very, very excited to announce our group. My name is Nikki Harris. I am the chair for the District 9 Young Professionals Committee. We are very excited to have you guys all here to join us for our Get Your Advocacy on Q&A. Today we're going to have a little bit of an informal conversation and Q&A with our panelists. We have Ian Seitz. He is working currently, if you cannot tell, at Amazon, and we are excited to have him from a little bit of an emerging setting. We also have Mike Heifer. He is the head athletic trainer at Bishop Lynch High School. He's joining us all the way from District 6 down in Texas. And then we have our ultimate beloved District 9 director, Marisa Brunette. So welcome everybody to the panel. We are going to go ahead and get started. If you guys have questions as we go along, we've taken your pre-submitted questions from your RSVP, so we'll be running through some of those questions later in the event today. But if you have questions and anything comes up as we go along, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will be moderating that as we go along. So I'm going to go ahead and give it away to Ian. Go ahead and introduce yourself and give us your thoughts on personal advocacy, as well as quantifying your value in the workplace.
First off, thank you. I'm really happy to be a part of it. I don't know how I got hooked up to be on this star-studded panel, but I'm happy to be here. So I started out as a high school athletic trainer. While I was there, I also launched my own business doing event coverage. That's not the term I'd like to use. It was more supplying services, high quality medicine to contracted services. And then I went to the Space Center, got away from the traditional setting, worked at Kennedy Space Center for almost 5 years. Clinical education coordinator as well as clinical athletic trainer there. And now since November, I work as an injury prevention specialist at Amazon. So my perspective on advocacy has kind of echoed through my career, I think, both from advocating for myself and the profession of providing high quality service when I was at the high school. Try to create that work-life balance. They couldn't offer me more money because that was dictated by the district. But what I was able to do was be able to advocate for a shifted schedule and not have to teach classes until the afternoon. Kind of a common setup for high schools, but when I was there, that didn't exist in Brevard County. So there was that. And then at the Space Center, provided a lot of wonderful opportunities for advocacy, both for individually as well as professionally. But the visibility to do it professionally there with the spotlight of the NASA meatball provided some wonderful speaking opportunities and just kind of cold call engagements. And I believe that anytime we are representing ourselves as athletic trainers, it's more than just ourselves. You're representing our entire profession. The steps you make in your career, the steps you make at your job echo the value of all of us collectively. And that's something that, I definitely didn't take for granted at the Space Center, and I don't take for granted here now at Amazon. Again, different type of spotlight. It's kind of blue and orange rather than blue and red of the meatball, but it's growing rapidly, and internally there's tons of opportunity for advocacy. We work hand in hand with safety, so being able to demonstrate our value daily is something that's really important, but also to be able to demonstrate the unique skills that athletic trainers have of critical thinking and kind of those intangible leadership skills that I think we've all developed through clinical education, being forged in fire together. And as this field grows, this emergent setting grows, I'm really excited to see how it changes. So I think that's pretty good for an intro.
Thank you, Ian. So we're going to go ahead and move on to Mike. Tell us a little bit about your ways of advocating.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. So Again, my name is Mike Hopper. I'm the head athletic trainer at Bishop Lynch High School in Dallas. And when we talk about advocacy and something talking about value is a topic that I spend a lot of time talking about. When we quantify what it is that we do, I think is really important, because the example I give all the time is I can go tell our administration, I can tell our CFO, right? Because to some extent, all of us are in a business world in some way, whether that's Ian, working for Amazon, or somebody working in the hospital setting, or a PT clinic setting, where it's a business. In education, it's a business as well. I mean, here for us in the private school setting, it is certainly a business. We have 1,000 customers every year, right? So we have to start looking at things from a business perspective, and athletic trainers struggle with that concept. But when we do look at it that way and actually quantify what it is we do, then we can understand how decisions are made and when they're made, and get a better understanding of them. The example that I use all the time when I give my presentations on AT value, and we talk about number of hours worked, right? If I go, how many times do we see that, well, we're overworked, we're underappreciated, we're underpaid? Okay, that's like one of the sub mottos of the profession or something like that. But if we don't know how many hours we're working, then we can't really justify changing that, right? If I just tell my administration that, well, I work too much, they just nod their head and go, yeah, so does everybody else, right? But when I can sit down and go, no, you don't understand. This is a 12-hour day. That's a 16-hour day. This is a 10-hour day. And I average over the course of the week an 11 or 12-hour day. And then you start to add that up, and all of a sudden they look at that and go, that is a lot of hours, right? So it's that understanding that I think we have to do a better job of and not just looking at it from an hours perspective, but also from a treatments perspective. And we need to use that type of data to drive home what it is that we need as well. So when we advocate and we say, look, I'd like to be able to do more and more manual therapy stuff, but I can't justify doing manual therapy, and I can't get manual therapy done because that's considered a more one-on-one treatment, when it's one or two athletic trainers in the room with 25 patients trying to get some sort of treatment in a 25-minute time period, right? And I think most of us can understand what an athletic trainer looks like, especially in the high school or in the college setting, where they all come running in at one time, right? And so we just have to do a better job from a perspective of showing what it is that we are doing, and not just, hey, I work a lot of hours, or hey, I see a lot of patients, but actually identifying what it is that we are seeing, right? So another great number I like to use, because if you throw out too many big numbers, then they can also get turned away, right? We had 7,500 patient visits one year. Okay, well, that's a really big number, and that number, everybody's going, what in the world is that? But if I turn around and go, we saw out of the 1,000 students that we have on our campus, over 500 of them came in for treatment or for an evaluation or something like that at some point in time. Now the administration can look at that and go, so your position is touching over half of our school population. And that makes a difference, because again, it's not just throwing out random numbers. It's actually quantifying and understanding what it is that we are providing. Okay, and we do that in a lot of different ways, whether it's treatments, whether it's patient visits, it's hours worked. We also look at game coverage, because then the athletic trainers and the athletic directors and administration can understand what, if there's one athletic trainer or two athletic trainers, then we can't provide high quality care when you've got 6 games trying to go on at one time. Okay. And I know that in my private school, that if I got multiple games going on and I can't have an athletic trainer on site right there available, the moment somebody gets hurt, guess what the first question is going to become? Where were you? Why weren't you there? Right? And so we have to be able to demonstrate and show our administration where we were and where our needs are, to be able to continually improve what it is that we're doing within our individual setting. And I think that as we continue to build what we do at each individual setting, we grow as a profession, because as a school, I want to keep up with the Joneses, right? So if my opponent that we're playing 25 times has this, then we better have it. Okay, and we see that all the time with the newest uniform, the newest field turf, the newest gadgets, right? The newest football helmet. Well, we also need to be seeing that from a healthcare perspective, but we have to do the work as healthcare providers to show the administration what it is that we do need, utilizing the different documents that the NATA and the district organizations and state organizations are providing, so that we can all keep up with the Joneses and continue to elevate our profession at the individual school and individual state level.
Excellent. Mike knows that I love AT value, not nearly as much as he does, but I also love it as well. And you bring up that point of really numbers are power, right? So we really cannot speak to the volume and the importance of what we do if we're really not working to quantify that. And I think benchmarking is another thing. It's important, right? We need to know what others are doing. What are the high schools doing that are in your conference? What are the high schools doing in your district? What are the high schools or the other organizations like yours doing within the state? And then how can we show where we are in regards to what they are doing? I think that speaks very highly to our administration when we're able to benchmark similar programs or similar organizations to what we are. Everybody likes to keep up with the Joneses, if you will. So thank you for sharing that with us. We're going to go ahead to Director Brunette.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. And I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. It's nice to see so many names and faces and joining the conversation. This is something that I've been very passionate about since day one of my career journey starting into athletic training. Because those many years ago when I started, it was still a profession where we literally had to explain who we were and what we did every single time we met somebody. So advocacy has been extremely important throughout my career, and I started at the Division I level at Florida State University when the university was still segregated. Meaning the men and women each had their own separate athletic training facilities. So there was a lot of advocating for, more collaboration there and working together and trying to, bring staffs together there. My career went from a Division I program into an outpatient private rehabilitation clinic, and that's where I'd have to say my advocacy really ignited here, because this clinic in the epicenter of Florida in Orlando basically was a very strong clinic that wanted to increase their community presence and outreach within the community. And I learned quite a bit from my mentors and leaders as far as, what to do, how to get out there, what advocacy really does mean, what's our objectives when I go into the community, who do I want to talk to, and how do I want to organize, who's my power base, who's the audience that we're trying to reach to, and make sure that when you're out there, you've produced resources like Mike just talked about that help tell our story and include data and analytics that show the value. You know, again, if you're going to talk to a high school, you know, that doesn't have an athletic trainer in their administration, you have data, like you said, comparative data that, you know, high school H down the street has 3 athletic trainers. They're providing, you know, this many treatments and this many kids are getting care that aren't missing school. You know, so again, at that outpatient clinic, I learned a great deal. I also learned about the advocacy, I'll say at different levels, because when I certainly went into the community to try to help schools hire athletic trainers, you know, I might've been talking to the athletic director. I might've been talking to, back then we still had PTAs in high schools, you know, but if I went down the street to try to get the hospital to hire the services of the athletic trainer, I was talking to the administrators in the C-suite, meaning the CEOs and the CFOs, who completely look at things in a different light, and it's all business. So, you know, trying to prioritize who your audience is and how you talk to them. One of the things that, you know, I can look at now and kind of chuckle about, because it was so true back then when I was a young professional, is that one thing that there is no doubt that if anybody ever works with or comes across an athletic trainer is the passion that we have for our profession, and that we want people to know who we are and what we do. And a lot of times the passion that we have and the way we deliver the message isn't always received as passion, but it might be received as, whoa, you know, that was a bit strong. You know, so early on, thank God I had some mentors that like, look, we know you're extremely passionate about this profession and creating jobs and wanting to make sure athletic trainers are getting hired, but you might want to try altering your delivery a little bit. And that was extremely helpful, because when I did go in to talk to the CFO, I had my data, my analytics, my resources, and everything that I can give them, and just really tried to pull them into my passion, and show them that this passion right here will and can help you create change. And I think that's what we all want as athletic trainers. And, you know, so we can use the passion for our profession to create change and, you know, make sure that we can get people on board, that we motivate them through our advocacy of our own profession to come on board with us, you know, stand with us, be our ally, and get the word out. And, you know, from a leadership standpoint, there's no better way for us to show that right now than with At Your Own Risk, which we created for the public, you know, to direct them there. But what I mean by, you know, our passion and our drive and the people that we've worked with, we've brought them on board and we have them standing with us, like Kobe Bryant, who did a video for us on At Your Own Risk, you know, sharing his story as to how he worked with Gary Vitti since the time he was 17 years old. And he could tell our story through his eyes. Dr. James Andrews is out there advocating and telling his story through his eyes as a not only business owner, but a physician. So again, you know, we have to take responsibility to be our own advocate. And in the words of a really good musician, you know, we need to pull up, we need to shake things up, and we need to stand together. And what I would like to see is that we think about being an AT advocate all the time. Have the conversation. If you're in a grocery store, like I was the other day, I had my AT shirt on, just had the AT logo. It started a question. It started a question from the lady that was standing behind me. What is AT? You know, take those opportunities right there. They're given to you every day to advocate. So, you know, it just takes the courage, and courage never quits, my friends. So let's be courageous.
So I think you bring up a good point. Passion is really the foundation, I think, of advocacy in whatever way we may be doing that. What strategies do the three of you, whoever wants to answer, feel that we can use to better teach advocacy to students in athletic training programs or even young professionals that are just coming really into the profession?
I'll take that. And I know we do this with some of the students that I'm a preceptor with, and put them through, take them with us to Capitol Hill Day. Show them advocacy at that level. Take them with you within the community. When I go to talk to the Chamber of Commerce, engage that students. The student could be an advocate with me by telling them about their educational experience. So I think it's got to start at the educational level and be part of their clinical, experience. Set up presentations for them to do. I remember the one student I had was scared to speak in public. I had an opportunity to speak at a small chamber of commerce in a very sports-minded community. And I said, okay, we're going to do this, but you're going to do the presentation. And it scared her to death, but it was very educational for her. It was great for her because I could see her passion as a student during this presentation coming out to the community, to where then she got them on board as far as, tell me more about the program you're in and how I could share this with our high school students. So I think by exposing them to, advocacy at the different levels within our associations, within your communities, even within the local, youth sports groups, that's going to help ignite their fire and lead them to, advocate.
I absolutely agree. I think that there's a huge component to the clinical education experience where advocacy can be stimulated and give them the opportunity to feel that what it's like. I think it's hard to simulate in a classroom. I think they do a really great job of helping them advocate for themselves with resume writing and how to write a cover letter and how to search for a job or approach a school board. I think they run some scenarios, but when you get into the clinical education theater and you have the opportunity, especially, like Mike was talking to the administration about asking for more resources, rather than saying, this is a big kid conversation. You can stay here. I've got a meeting. Take them with you. We used to do that a lot at the Space Center. We would attend, meetings every Tuesday morning with the director level. The chief medical officer for NASA was the one leading the meeting, and they loved having the students come in, and the students got a chance to see how these people who are preparing to design escape mechanisms for the new capsule, that they value an athletic trainer's perspective, and they're asking us to participate in helping write their procedures there. And just that real life experience. We're actually in process of launching, if it wasn't for COVID, the fall would be our first semester with students officially here at Amazon. And I help develop that program. And part of that is to incorporate a project so that they can collect data, come up with an idea. And part of that project process is presenting it to the senior leadership in the building and tying it to their language, right? Marisa and Mike both touched on, you got to talk numbers. That's how they think. That's how they talk. That's how they evaluate whether it's to move forward. And in a lot of cases, especially with a company that moves as fast as Amazon, I promise you it moves just as fast on the inside as it does to get your packages to your door. They don't have time. I'm putting together a presentation, a document to discuss what things we're doing as athletic trainers in our region. And we have 6 sites with an average of 2 athletic trainers per site, I have 300 characters, not words, characters, to get across what we are doing to advocate for our employees. And I can't wait to have the opportunity to challenge. They'll probably be better at it than me. I bet Mike would be the best with his Twitter presence for 140 characters. He's probably pretty good at that. So
a lot of people want me to, they want me only on Twitter because then I have to limit to 280. But I think one of the big things that, for our students to learn, for our young professionals to learn, and for our profession to learn is changing the mindset of we're just that person that goes and hides in the background until we're needed. There are too many people that I hear other athletic trainers say, well, I don't even know who that administrator is, or I don't even know who that director is, or whatever. And in my situation, I feel pretty fortunate that I feel like pretty much every department on our campus, whether it's fine arts or the business office or administration or even transportation, whoever, that I have at least a relationship with somebody in that department. Because then when I need something that would relate to that department, I know who to go to and try to get in the door that way, right? And so I think we have to do a better job there of preparing ourselves, to be in that spotlight a little bit. And when we talk about business and we talk about numbers, I had, when we were pushing to hire my assistant full-time a couple years ago, and when we were trying to add EMS a few years ago for varsity football, I had a coach tell me, and she said, look, the people in the business office, they don't care about people. In the grand scheme, the way that their minds, they're accountants, their minds, they look at numbers, right? And I'm going, well, okay, I get that. Well, here are the numbers. But here's what I'm also going to do is I'm going to give you names, right? And so when we were trying to push for that EMS contract, I gave them the names of every football player, high school football player, who died across the country that year. Okay? Not only did I have names, I had numbers, right? They want numbers, I'll give you numbers. But we're also going to relate that personally and make that connection that way too, because it all relates back together. And that was an easy sell when you put it that way to them. But you also have to understand what it is they want. A business person wants this. An administrator may want this. The school nurse may want that. And we have to be able to speak all of those different languages.
So you bring up a good point, speaking different languages. I think athletic trainers are probably, in my opinion, one of the most versatile professions that I could think of in any discipline. So what approaches would you say that we could use to demonstrate our full skill set to an employer or to an organization or to an administrator? How do we show them all of the wonderful things that we can do as athletic trainers? Anybody can go.
I'll speak to that one. In the short term, it's very difficult to bring all of our skill set to the table, put it out there, and for them to really have a good grasp of how they can apply that. But I think that's the key, is that if you're able to show them application, not just say, hey, I'm awesome because I'm an athletic trainer and these are the skills that I have, but how can you apply it? And how does that turn into either an avoidance of cost or potentially even revenue building if you're talking to a business? In the world of industry, injuries are very expensive, and it's not just the cost of lost time. It goes much further than that. And so if you can demonstrate where you're able to intervene and again back it up with a frequency and a value, you can make that point quite quickly. And in fact, in Amazon and other industries, it's growing rapidly as a result of that being demonstrated very clearly. In the long term, I think it's just perseverance and follow through. I think a lot of people push out a lot of great ideas and they put them on the shelf. They're like, hey, here, this is a great idea. You should use it. And then they move on to the next without the follow through. And it'll fizzle out. And I think that's really where we as athletic trainers, we can be tenacious and driven. And those are some of those intangible skills that, again, being, forged through the programs and standing in the rain and doing all the wonderful things that make us great, that we bring to the table, and to be able to persevere and follow through and to then communicate the results. I think that's what a lot of people are looking for, is application and results. So.
Yeah, and Ian, you nailed it there. That's the big thing, is we are not going to be able to do it in one visit with anybody, as far as advocating the full scope of what, here comes the Italian, what we can do, for our employer. In many situations, I think it's good that they see us in a different light also. At work and in several, when I worked for the hospital, there were committees that we could get involved in, working with the other directors or the other administrators that did show me in a different light than what they thought, an athletic trainer could or couldn't do, getting involved in your marketing teams. And again, I might have that idea, but as Ian said, and I've seen this so many times, it's okay, I presented the idea and nothing happened. Well, it's not going to happen the first time, more than likely, that the idea is presented, especially in a healthcare system or a large business, or even a small private-owned clinic. Like I worked for the small private-owned clinic that only had 3 clinics, but there's still processes, and they do move on to the next thing. And you do have to continuously go back and reintroduce, hey, I'm just following up on, the idea to add this. And I've been looking at it a little further and feel like, if we do this, this could bring this much more, revenue in here. And, I've researched a few more things. So the continuous follow-up, I think, is key, without a doubt. And as far as, again, advocacy for yourself as well as the profession, getting involved in the other areas outside of athletic training, say you want to be a part of the safety committee, the marketing team committee, or, help something with HR. So you're collaborating with the other individuals in your business.
Yeah, I think we talk about, when we talk about advocacy, we talk about the chicken or the egg, right? And so many times do we hear that, an athletic trainer at your school is an invaluable position, right? And we're invaluable when we save a kid's life, right? But if we're not valuable the first time, then we're not there to be invaluable. Okay. And what I mean by that is, if we can't justify a position to begin with, then when that kid collapses, they're waiting on EMS, right? Because I'm not there to be there to handle it. And so I think that we have to look at that from both perspectives, that, we know what causes death in athletics, and we have to be prepared for that. And as a profession, we are prepared for that, but we also have to help the people understand why it is that we need to be there in the first place, so that when that happens, we're able to actually respond to it. And so, like I said, we talk chicken and the egg all the time. And Marissa talks about, getting committee and things like that. And I happened to notice recently, it dawned on me as I sit in a meeting for the reopening of our school task force that I sit on, and I look at it and I'm going, you know what? The next youngest person on this committee is a minimum of 10 years older than I am. And I just happened to, I recognize that, and I just sit in the corner and I only speak when I really have to. But I just sit there and take it all in and be another resource of hearing that and being able to research and being able to provide them with answers when we need it, and not just being a noisy voice in the room, right? Because when you get into a meeting with anybody, we all know that there's plenty of those people in there. And so just understanding where we best fit in, and knowing when to step in when we need to in that type of situation.
I think if I could just add, Nikki, here, because you brought up a good point, and I actually just had a conversation this morning with one of our local high school athletic trainers here as to, what they're doing. Are they involved in the return and infection control policies within the county? And, the answer was, well, we don't really know what's going on. We haven't heard from the county athletic director. So that gave us the opportunity to talk about, okay, we'll pick up the phone and ask to be involved and take the lead and show them that we've got this. So, again, it's a matter of going to them to let them know, because a lot of times it might not even cross their mind to come ask the athletic trainer to be involved in something, such as the return to safety, to schools. So again, insert yourself again in a passionate but deliverable way, and show them that there's a need that they have right now that you can fill and that you can help them. And in the words of Hall of Famer Mike Goldenberg, who has shared this with our students over and over and over, he's continuously said, if you see a need, fill a need, don't wait.
Absolutely. I think that's a huge point, in that if the first time they're meeting you is when you're asking for something, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of traction. And if you're taking that first experience to demonstrate all of the value, it's not going to be as well received. So if you insert yourself, I love that. And you start building these relationships that when it does come time, they see your name on the agenda and they're like, oh, wow, yeah, they really helped us out. They gave us some great insight. And now you ask for something and it's got some, pull at that point.
So I'm going to ask one more question before I turn the conversation in a different direction. But a lot of you guys mentioned consistency, right? Or trying to fill maybe one particular project. So a lot of us are talking about reopening of schools, right? So we may insert ourselves into that conversation. But I think that is maybe one instance. So once we establish that value, how do we uphold that value and that worth after the first time?
I think it has to.
It's doing the same, continuing to collect that data, continuing to hold yourself to a high level, right? Our motto here, many of you who follow me on Twitter know that I like this phrase, every athlete deserves an athletic trainer. Every Friar athlete has one here at our school, right? And that is our phrase that we use. And so we, but now we have to uphold that and just provide excellent healthcare repeatedly.
Yeah, and I think, we need to look at it as, here's something new. We just became a part of this, safety infection control committee, and don't look at it as a one and done, okay, I came in, I did this, I filled the need, I'm done. Continue on, like you said, continue to show the value in every way that you can, stay on, and help them in other areas in that particular section of the committee, or bring to them new ideas or opportunities. So again, just the continued involvement, follow up, and continuing to show them, again, we all can't stress enough, data analytics. That's what's going to talk to any business person, as Ian mentioned earlier. But staying in there, don't be like, okay, I did that, we had this, school's open, I'm done, I'm going back to, over here.
Yeah, I think that's really an excellent point, and that continually inserting yourself in the conversation. Our skill set is so dynamic and diverse that, you know, constantly there's circumstances that arise where our expertise can drastically and positively affect the outcome of whatever that situation is. I mean, COVID's a great example. I love it that athletic trainers are getting involved. They're getting involved here. We have some on the task force, and providing that opportunity to demonstrate our skills in ways that, oh, that's just the rehab guy, right? That's what I was at the Space Center for a long time. Or that's the safety guy because I'm wearing a green vest, you know. But to be able to go in and say, hey, well, have we thought about this? And then they start to approach you. So by continually inserting and demonstrating that dynamic nature of, you know, the very expanse, 5 domains is something that I think it takes some practice, it takes some effort, but it gets easier and easier and easier every time you do it.
So for a harder question, if you will, Marisa brought up earlier that sometimes our passion comes out and we tend to bulldog a little bit, right? We may get a little bully or a little aggressive. How do we effectively advocate for both ourselves, our position, our profession, and set boundaries without causing conflict? It's not always going to be perceived as nicely as we would like it, right? So how do we advocate without causing conflict within the organization or within other disciplines, et cetera?
Well, I'll start with that one since, you know, I brought that up and got to share my experience with that early on in my career. And that, it is definitely a fine line because those who know me, they know I'm passionate. And whatever I'm passionate about, I'm all in 250%. So I still find myself having to pull back my reins, you know, but I'll use a great example is when I was with a large rehabilitation company in Florida several years back. You know, I had the entire state that I had started the sports medicine program for, and I wanted to add more athletic trainers. And there was the need, there was the desire, the communities wanted it, but you know, the black and white, the numbers, you know, weren't where the company wanted them to be. But yet, you know, I was going into these meetings like, but we have all the ingredients, you know, it's right there. To where, you know, I looking back, I probably should have brought my advocates in with me as well. You know, like I said earlier, the people that were standing behind me and wanting this for their community, I could have utilized their voices probably to help me get the point across also. If you're advocating for yourself and your salary, the best thing you can do there is to have your documents and your resources in place and know what the market is in that area. You know, what is the market in South Florida for a healthcare professional, you know, with a master's degree? I mean, look at that. Look at the athletic trainers. If we look at Gopher Ellis right now, who has gotten the hourly rate up overall across the country as an average, but if I single in and look at Florida, it's still, you know, it's probably $6 to $8 less than what the average is, you know, and why is that? But so if we continue to come in with the data and have our resources, and the big thing, if you're trying to advocate for yourself to get a raise, you know, don't just do it on the day of your evaluation. You need to be advocating for yourself all throughout the year. You need to show up after you've finished a big project and sit down and talk to your administrators or your supervisor and discuss, you know, what you did along the project and how you did this. So it shouldn't be on day of evaluation. There should be the communication all throughout the year as to what you're doing and the goals that you're achieving. And, 6 months into your year, you might have already achieved the goals that they've set for you. And you're coming back to them saying, okay, now I'm going to look at this. And, if I do this, would this make me eligible for, a bonus or more vacation time or a 10% raise? Talk about it all the way through.
Absolutely. I think that there's alliances, and making sure that you have those relationships, not just with the people who are making the decisions, but the people who can also advocate for you are huge. And people in different disciplines, if you've got a posse of 5 ATs that are rolling into the administrator's office, of course you guys all feel like you have excellent value. You definitely do, obviously, but if then you can have the coaches advocate for you and the parents advocate for you and the local EMS, and you're working with the police chief or the fire chief and trying to liaison and smooth these processes out. In this world, it's operations, process engineering, the other components of HR, how you were able to de-escalate situations and provide high quality service, and that's where you get that traction in those conversations. And also, I think, ask for feedback early and be willing to have thick skin and take it. I think that as athletic trainers, we are so passionate about our profession that we almost defend it to a fault sometimes. It's like, oh, well, what do you know? Why are you interrupting my evaluation? Well, maybe they're actually wanting to help, and you can just say, can we talk after it's done, or something along those lines. I certainly on the sidelines dealt with some interesting involvement from parents, and yeah. Sorry, I was about to go on a sidebar tangent, but this isn't the right forum for that.
It's the passion. It's the passion. I know.
It is the passion. Yeah, and so taking feedback and just building those alliances, and to echo that alliance point just one more time is, as ATs, we have zero problem standing in the gap. How many times have we taken a kid's helmet or had a passionate argument with a coach about whether that kid's going back in or not? And sometimes I think we take on a little bit too much ourselves, and we're not able, or we don't even think that we have allies that we can depend on, and we can have them help us accomplish our common goal.
Yeah. So staying with that alliances thing, we were fortunate for the last 9 years. Our strength and conditioning coach here at BL was the first certified strength and conditioning specialist in the state of Texas. I've seen his NSCA number, and he was number 18. So he's been around a while. But before he was at BL, he worked in a public school with an NATA Hall of Famer, Dennis Hart. And so I've heard this story from both Coach Barnes's perspective and from Dennis's perspective of, they always talked about, because they both reported to the head football coach, right? And it was, well, if I, as the athletic trainer, want something, the football coach may tell me no. And if he, as the strength coach, goes and asks for it, he may tell me no. But if we both go to him and ask for it, we got a better chance of getting it, right? Now, we use that that relationship or that analogy with our school nurse in our administration, right? If I go ask for it, the school president may tell me no. If she goes and asks for it, he may tell her no. But if both of us are walking into his office, there's a pretty good chance we're getting whatever it is we're asking for that day.
I think also it's important, especially with the social media that we have on our side today too. I mean, most businesses have a Facebook page, and a lot of their patients will go in and do a review. So, again, part of advocating for yourself is make sure you see those reviews, print them out, save them, because, bottom line is about customer service and keeping our patients happy. And, if I walk in with, 35 reviews that were 5 stars that mentioned my customer service or how I took care of this patient, Or, you know, a lot of my patients would actually write a card, you know, a thank you card. But those are the things that you want to share and advocate for yourself on your behalf too. You know, that all throughout the year, you know, I've gotten, you know, high reviews from our patients, as well as their parents. And, you know, that's actually even led to, you know, because I took care of Joe's ACL, then his brother came in because, you know, he slipped and fell and sprained his ankle. So utilize the social media to help you advocate as well. Ask your patients if they were happy. You know, we tell our doctors all the time when I was with the orthopedic practice, we tell them, and as they would check out, we would say, you know, please write a review. If, you know, you were happy with the way your doctor treated you, took care of you, please write a review. And that was huge. And that helps, you know, and this is a whole different conversation, but that helps your practice or, you know, your company also move up in the SEO, in the search engine searches. You know, when you get all of these reviews and Google, you know, reviews, that helps as well. So that's definitely something that you can use to help advocate for yourself.
So as we wrap up, I think we could talk about this all night. I have one additional question. So the Young Professionals Committee, as you guys know, services those that are in their first 12 years of certification. And in our profession, that is a critical aspect, I think, that we lose a lot of people or are unable to retain them due to things like work-life balance and some of the struggles that athletic trainers go through. So how do we in the profession balance personal and professional advocacy? How do we advocate for ourselves as people and quality of life and work-life balance, but then also dedicate ourselves to advocating for the profession and for the things that we need on that end as well?
That's a big one, huh?
I was gonna say, what do you guys want to take that one since I just spoke, or I'm happy to continue on.
I'll try. I'll do my best. You know, I think it's something really to think about is, are you applying your efforts in the most valuable location? And what I mean by that is, you know, are we just staying late to help do the laundry because we're good people and we're willing to stand in the gap? Or are we drawing the line in the sand there and saying, you know, I'll be back in the morning for Black and Blue Clinic, and really kind of standing up for ourselves in that. But then, you know, at other times, you know, you're taking a ride with your patient to their appointment, and that's value added because then you can transfer that information. So I think it's really about looking at the circumstances of what's being asked of you and evaluating what the long-term effect for that is going to be. Not just the long-term effect for, you know, your relationship with your coach or, you know, that particular instance with an athlete or a patient, but really more thinking about how is this going to set me up in the future? Is this going to be something that I'm going to be able to add to my resume or be able to add to my conversation of advocating for self-growth, professional growth? What visibility and impact does this have for our profession as a whole? And by, you know, having some, I guess, wisdom to, for lack of a better term, to really think about that from the big picture and evaluate those circumstances and very consciously make those choices every day. Really, I think we're all presented with opportunities that, certainly at Amazon, it's no different. They'll let you take on as much as you want to. I promise. You could be staying up all night long writing white papers, but, you know, is it really what's going to be best for you and your family, and how you want to see how quickly you want to accelerate your career, and really truthfully, are you taking the right path in the maze to get to where you want to go? It's complicated, but something to kind of think about in the forefront of your mind as you approach these scenarios.
I think it's important that we think about what our goals are, with, you know, everything that we're trying to achieve. You know, what's your goal from a personal, professional perspective of, You know, do I want to be the head athletic trainer at such and such place, or do I want to be, you know, a clinic director in a facility, or whatever that might be. But then also looking at, you know, how do we benefit or make benefit for our profession and for our individual setting. You know, I give an example. A few years ago, our CFO's daughter, who was in like 7th grade at the time or something, whatever, you know, had done something, I don't know, sprained her ankle or whatever. And mom could get her, you know, go get the girl, get her to the school by, you know, 6 o'clock. And well, practice ends at 5:45, you know, and she's asking if I was still going to be there. And I'm going, you know what, for an extra 10 minutes, it's worth it to me to stay. And I can sit here and do 10 minutes of paperwork, whatever it is, because I look at it twofold. One, I'm building that relationship with that girl who's going to eventually end up at our school anyway as an athlete. And two, I can continue to build that relationship with mom, right? And number three, and this is the one I talk about all the time, is, you know, our athletic training room is not where it should be, right? It's 20-something years old and it's outdated and too small, whatever. Well, you know, I took every opportunity to treat one of her daughters, even though we were in middle school, because the girls wouldn't come down there without her. So every time they came for treatment, mom, with her CFO hat on, had to see the athletic training room and how small it was and how outdated it was and whatever, you know, whatever else. So that's going to eventually be something that we're able to use, you know, to our benefit down the road when, you know, when I'm asking for this brand new facility and I'm asking for this equipment and that equipment, and she goes, "You're right, because what you had wasn't appropriate. So now let's get where we need to be." But she doesn't necessarily see that when she's, you know, in the C-suite, like we talk about.
Amen. I always say the best way to make relationships is by giving care to those people, your principal or their daughter or the custodian or the chef, because it's really the best way to demonstrate what we do on a daily basis is to bring those people into our realm. Closing thoughts for any of you. Unfortunately, as much fun we're having, we've almost been an hour. So please, for any of our panelists, closing thoughts.
I
Go
was going to
ahead.
just say, does anybody have any questions that they would like us to answer before we close up? If, you know, I could pose that.
Sure. Feel free to unmute your mic if you want to go ahead. Anybody? Don't be shy.
Thanks for the music.
Yeah. You know, honestly, it's so loud in this building. I sing to myself all day. Nobody knows. Behind the mask, nobody knows. It's great.
Well, we want to thank all three of you guys so much for your perspective. For those of you guys who have attended, we did record this session, so we will post the YouTube link to our YouTube channel on our Twitter page. So feel free to distribute that link to your friends. Check it out. But we are very grateful for the three of you for your perspective, and we hope that you guys join us for our next Q&A event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody stay safe, stay well.
Wear your mask. Wash your hands.
Wear your mask.
Bye.
Bye.